Hey there, Loaded Buggy again, and today, for the first time in a long time, I don't feel the need to say, it's been a while. I'm recording this video immediately after recording another commentary, so for me it hasn't been a while, but I guess we'll see when this video actually goes live. Enough about that. Today we're going to talk about love. More specifically, building a foundation for love, and building a foundation for a healthy relationship. In this day and age, we live in a rather selfish society, and that sort of selfish nature tends to carry over into relationships. And I'm kind of here to give you some tips on how I've maintained a relationship of about 10 years, give or take, in this day and age, and how our relationship has continued to improve over time. These are not hard, fast rules, but these are just simply what has worked for me and what has worked for many other people. Relationships are different for a lot of different people, and you have to modify things to work with your relationship, but I feel like a lot of these core principles are kind of black and white, where they're pretty much going to apply to most people's relationships. Number one, I want to talk a little bit about what an actual relationship should be like and what the point of relationships are. Many of us date, and in this day and age, dating culture is much different than what it used to be. In my experience, dating is the prelude to what the end goal is, which is finding a spouse. And dating allows you to get to know someone and get to know their quirks, their personalities, and see if the attraction is there to be able to commit to that person long term. It's a required step, in my opinion, to what, again, the ultimate goal is, which is marriage, or a long-term partnership, whatever you want to call it. Now, I believe that the biggest roadblock and the biggest hindrance to a healthy relationship, a healthy long-term relationship, is selfishness, and pride for that matter too, but those two things kind of go hand in hand, but selfishness in particular. Now, I think when you first start dating, this is a little bit more loose, but when you're in a relationship that's looking to be long-term, you need to kind of die to yourself and get out of your own way. Because if you're only out here to serve yourself while having a partner to boot, it's not going to last long term. If you're always looking out for number one, numero uno, me, my, whatever, it's just going to fail. It simply is. And that's because when you're serving yourself, you are actively working against your partner. Being in a relationship and someone that you're committed to requires selflessness. Now, that's not to say that you always put them first. You have to find a good balance of making sure that you can be your best self for that person while also prioritizing their needs at the same time. And while you're doing that for them, they should be doing the exact same thing for you. It's a 50-50 relationship. The same energy that you are expected to give them, that selflessness, that service to that person to make sure that their love tank, quote unquote, is filled, they should be giving you back that very same energy, because if you're working to meet their needs and they're working to meet your needs, that is where real happiness in a relationship can be sustainable. I've learned in my long-term relationship, my marriage, that whenever I win, we both lose. Winning in a relationship is never good for the relationship. It leaves a sour taste in your partner's mouth, and it could have long-term effects that sabotage your relationship in the long run. So, in short, you need to submit to each other. Put the pride down, put the selfishness away, and find the solution to whatever the problem is, so where you're no longer playing tug-of-war, but instead working together. For example, have you ever tried pushing a car, like putting a car in neutral and pushing a car by yourself? If you've tried pushing a car by yourself, it's really, really heavy, and it's really, really hard to get the momentum to keep the car moving where it takes a minimal effort. But once you get the momentum going, it eases up. But you add another person in the mix, and it's exponentially easier to get the car moving and to keep that momentum. So seek the solution that works for your relationship, work together, and you are on your way for success. Bumps are going to happen in relationships. And in this day and age, it seems like a lot of people give up very early on in relationships whenever the bumps start to happen. If you want a long-term relationship, you have to learn how to weather those storms and fill those potholes that are creating those bumps in your relationship. Giving up is not always the solution. Now, that's not to say that the relationship shouldn't end, but a good relationship, or what could be a good relationship, should not be abandoned as soon as a bump in the road occurs. Relationships are work. They are constant work. And especially early on, when you're still learning about each other, even the first 10 years. Like I'm almost 10 years deep into my relationship with my wife, and there's still things that I learn about her, and there's still things she learns about me to this very day. In fact, my wife's parents, who have been together for like 40 plus years, I've still seen them learn new things about each other. It simply does not end. There's always things to be learned about your spouse, new quirks that they've developed over time, quirks that they already have, and sometimes those quirks can be bumps in the road. What's the term that kids use in nowadays? Icks. That's it. A lot of times people will refer to these quirks as icks. It gives them the ick. It makes them feel weird because they don't like when their spouse does X, Y, and Z. Just because that exists doesn't mean that you should run away from the relationship. An ick is not always a red flag. Sometimes it's just something that's not ideal, not something that you particularly enjoy that your spouse does. And oftentimes, if you're smart about how you communicate that to your spouse, you can communicate to them, hey, I don't really like when you do this thing. And in my experience, whenever you communicate to your spouse in a loving way that's not beating them down or demeaning, they're way more likely to be receptive to that constructive criticism or to your feelings, whatever that may be. But don't allow those bumps to get in the way of what could be a quality or good relationship. Look for the foundational pieces where you think, I think we could really build something beautiful. If you can spot those things early in a relationship, then you're on a good path. But you do have to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take time to build your relationship to the point where it feels smooth and kind of flawless. I mean, my wife and I, like I said, we've been together for almost 10 years at this point, and we still have bumps. Our relationship is not flawless, but what we've learned to do is recover from those bumps, and we go from having those shaky moments to then smooth sailing for a while. Then another bump comes, and we address that bump. We work through that bump, and then there's smooth sailing for a while. It requires constant effort. Relationships are work, and work is required for success in a relationship. Now, I have so much more that I could say on this subject, actually. The page that I have of notes for this particular topic, I only got through about half of them, but here we are at 7.5 minutes into the video, and I feel it would be a disservice just to dump every little thing I know about relationships or have learned about relationships into one single video. So if you want to hear more about these particular topics, you want to hear my perspective on what I have learned in my relationship and how that can apply to maybe your relationship, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll make more of these relationship style videos. Bye now.